Shalom. This week, Parasha Teize. I'm also going to do Parasha Shoftim, which is last week's Torah portion. Now today I just want to zoom out a bit. When we find ourselves in the Parashas, we need to sort of, it's like diving into deep water. You don't know whether you're up or down or swimming sideways or whatever. You need to orientate yourself in order to see where you're heading. Now, within the parashas or the Torah portions, it's just as important to understand where you are. Now, when you're in the thick of it, when you're studying the verses and the words and whatever, you sort of lose context of what it's all about in regarding the different layers of information that is applicable to us today. Now, first and foremost, there's the personal interest or the personal layer, where it means something to you, where you listen to something or you read the parasha and something jump out at you personally. I had that experience this week as well. Just to bring the balance back, just to say, hey, you need to look at this, or you need to bring the balance back on that. And that's very important, that you have that experience on a weekly basis. The next level is basically within the larger community. What are the things, specifically in the body of Mashiach, what are the things that are happening in the greater body, or even within your fellowship or your family group or whatever, that is applicable? What text or what message is applicable to the community? Now that should also be a topic that come up when you go through the parasha and when you discuss it with fellow believers. And then when you zoom out a little bit more, we look at the prophetic picture. The prophetic picture is basically the pattern of leaving Egypt, entering the promised land. That's the overarching pattern. What we overlay with that is the festival pattern, which are 7 Moedim, or 7 stages of the work of Mashiach, which has to do with the restoration of his creation. When you look at the pattern of Israel leaving Egypt, there are certain milestones that coincide with the milestones that's signified and prophetically revealed through the Moedim, or the festivals themselves. So you can dive a bit deeper in there. So where we are now within this parasha, that's the historical layer. That's also our prophetic layer of physical Israel back in the day, leaving Egypt, and they're at the border of the Jordan, about to cross the Jordan and entering the promised land. And these are the last words from their leader, Moshe. And the last things that Yahweh is giving Moses to tell the new generation who are about to enter. And we can relate to that as the last generation, because the last generation are the ones, if you read the prophecies, who will enter into the Great Tribulation, which is signified by the Jordan. And crossing the Great Tribulation, or the Jordan, is then entering into the land. So there are 2 battles that will take place. Now, why I want to emphasize that today is because the Parasha Teize is called the War Parasha, which has a theme of warfare in the beginning, and it's got a theme of warfare at the end. When you look at the pinnacle of the restoration process, that is the 7th millennium. That's called the winepress as well, or the second wilderness experience. That has 2 wars on either side. Prior to entering the 7th millennium, the 6th millennium ends off with a war that is within the Great Tribulation. And the end of the 7th millennium is where Satan will be released after he's bound, the beginning of the 7th millennium, and that will be the second war that will happen prior to the 8th millennium, the new beginning, and and the New Jerusalem coming down, where Yahweh's kingdom will be finally established. So there's another wilderness experience that is before us. And this parasha specifically, Teize, talks about those things. Now, I found a lot of information within the first verse of this parasha, within the Sod level. Now, Sod means hidden things. If you look at the acronym Pardes, Pashat, Remes, Pashat. Yeah, space, Pashat is a face value. Then Sov is, what is it, Sov? I can't remember. Anyway, the next one is the child-parent relationship, the Hebrew poetry. The next one is the Remes, Drash and Remes, that's it. Remes is the parent-child, Drash is like Midrash, it's the deeper meaning, how it applies to me, how it applies to you prophetically. That's basically what I'm talking about, is Drash. And then Sod is the hidden meaning of the Hebrew language, but specifically the Gematria. Now, Gematria is a deeper language than the Hebrew language, that Yahweh speak through mathematics, and He speak through patterns and numbers and sequences. Now, the best example I can use for that is the Pyramid of Giza, that has been built by an ancient culture, and everything within the pyramid are mathematically embedded. There's a language embedded in the pyramid through the ratios, the sizes, and the mathematics surrounding that. So regardless which culture it is, what language you speak, when you analyze the universal language of mathematics, the universal language of numbers, you can extract wisdom from that physical structure that's been built in that way. In the same way, the Hebrew language got an underlying deeper language within the Gematria, or the numbering system, that highlights the hidden gems that is underneath the surface. And the majority of them are prophetic of nature. So that's what I've been heavily leaning towards this year, doing this Torah cycle, to unearth the gems that is in the Sod level, the deeper hidden level. And doing that within this parasha, just looking at the woman, looking at her hair that's been shaven off, her nails that's cut, and her clothing that she had to take off and put on some ordinary clothing to basically humble her. Every one of those words within the Gematria reveal the 7th millennium and the things that are going to happen there, and reconfirming the people that are going to be in that winepress. So what's also interesting is that this parasha has 72 commandments. So what I'm actually thinking about this morning, meditating on it, is that these 72 commandments are the commandments that are important for the people who will exist and go through the winepress. So it's very important for them to understand all these things, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So in next year's parasha, Yahweh willing, I will go into some of these commandments, specifically the ones that we can't understand, the ones that sound absurd, or the ones that really stand out. If we look at them, it's normally underneath that surface of scripture that the most valuable gems are hidden. And Yahweh deliberately did it that way in order to draw our attention to it, and then go and dig a bit deeper to unearth and to find those gems of wisdom. So that's for next year. Sorry about that. I'm already over my limit of slides that I want to present, and I'm going to squeeze another one in, what I discovered this morning with the Gematria of 72, just confirming these laws are applicable for those people. So basically I just want to zoom out this morning, put everything in context. And if we link that with last week's parasha, which is Shoftim, which is about judges and officers, that is basically the leadership that will exist during the 7th millennium, and what qualities they need to have in order to rule and lead the people during that time period, so that Yahweh can fulfill the function of that process that they are going through in order to beautify them, in order to prepare them and renew them into a restored people. So that's another opportunity that's there for the refinement of the nations, the mixed multitude that will come out of Babylon. Just like we had the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt, same pattern, we've got a mixed multitude coming out of Babylon. They went through a wilderness experience after encountering Mount Sinai, and now they're going to go through a wilderness experience. And within the Gematria, the Mount Sinai is still there. The word, the voice of Yahweh speaking, is still in there. So the pattern will repeat, just different people and different time frame. So I'll leave you with that. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will speak to you soon. Shalom.